Hello, everybody. Welcome to the PSU Vanguard's Winter Term Press Conference with PSU President Ann Cudd. We would like to thank the President for coming all the way down here to the sub-basement for this interview. After the President gives an opening statement, we will move into questions surrounding a variety of topics that impact our campus and PSU community. President Cudd, thank you for being here. Welcome to the newsroom.
Olivia, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. I'm really happy to have this opportunity to talk with you and to talk with the students by extension. So, an opening statement. I'll tell you a little bit about what we're going through and what we've been doing up in that RMNC building and across campus. So, I think the university is really going through a transitional phase right now. We're working on, closing a structural budget deficit, and we're working to do that in a way that really serves our students better and serves the community better going into the future. So we've been doing a really deep dive into our academic programs and looking at all of our operations with really a fine lens to see where we can find duplication of effort, where we can see programs that are not useful anymore to our students, programs that maybe the students aren't doing as well anymore, and where we have opportunities to synergize and grow across different fields. So we'll be making some, decisions very shortly coming from both the financial analysis and the program and unit analysis. And that may be a little bit rocky for a little while, but we really do have a vision for the future. And I look forward to later this month really expounding that vision and saying, this is where we're going and this is how we're going to get there. So that's sort of the hard work part of what we've been doing, but there's also been a lot of fun things going on. One thing is, I've been doing this move with the president and just went to the climbing wall today. Had a lot of fun. There were a few students there and several staff members, so it was a lot of fun.
Wonderful. So I do want to touch on some of those more fun things before we get into the questions. So you've been president of the university for about 3 years now. In your past 3 years on the park blocks, what do you think is your favorite thing about Portland State?
My favorite thing about Portland State is definitely the student stories that come out. I mean, the students are amazingly creative and interesting. I'm sure each of you have incredible stories too. And so I love, being able to walk across campus, meet students in various places, and hear their story and where they're going. And that also holds for the alums. We have so many alumni who, found their way through Portland State, and maybe different stories for why they came to Portland State, but then the opportunities that opened for them. And there's an amazing amount of loyalty and love for Portland State, so I do love that about it. But there's lots of good things going on, so yeah.
Of course. And obviously not everything can be wonderful. What is one thing that you've seen that you think Portland State can improve on?
Yeah, I think everything should be wonderful, and that's what I want to get to. But but no, one thing that we can improve on. Well, I mean, obviously the structural budget deficit is something that we can't live with. It will, run us out of business eventually if we don't fix that. So that's one thing. But also we've been going through, a student or a climate survey that including the students and the employees. And we've learned some things through the climate survey, I think, that show that we can make improvements. I think most importantly, and this is partly why I'm really glad we're having this opportunity to talk, is to develop better trust and transparency from the administration to students and with students. Mm-hmm. And so, that's something I really intend to try to do. This is part of why I'm trying to get out with students more often these days, and just meet students where they are. But I think that's definitely top on my list to improve, our working relationship.
Right. So yeah, let's talk about that campus climate survey a little bit. Can you expand more upon your general thoughts on what you saw in the campus climate survey? Some things that you're happy about seeing, some things you aren't as happy about.
So I think probably the things that I'm happiest about would be about the way that most of the employees say they love their jobs. So that's really good. Maybe that's 2/3 of the employees say they love their jobs. Well, loving your job, that's pretty cool. I'd like it to be even better than that, but that's great. And then when it comes to the students, I would say that students do feel comfortable about expressing their gender and sexual identity, and that's a definite plus. And so, on the other hand, political differences are a little bit more difficult for students to express and to share with each other, according to the climate survey. Now, mind you, it was, I think, about an 11% response rate, so you have to take it for what it is in that sense. But still, that's, I think, something that we should continue to work on. And I don't know exactly. I need to delve in deeper to maybe focus groups or to talk to students individually to find out exactly what that means. Why are students reluctant to express their political views? What is holding them back? But that's a common theme across higher ed right now. And I think it probably related to the political divisions in society at large.
Right. So looking at the climate survey, nearly 1 in 5 students felt that they were not being respected by administration. In a similar vein, a large chunk of PSU staff that did respond said that they don't feel respected by administration. How is your administration planning on bridging the trust and respect gap between student, staff, and administration?
Yeah, so I think that what we need to do is continue to prove ourselves by saying this is what we intend to do and then following through. I think that's the fundamental aspect of building trust. I think, respect, I don't know. I think that's a really good question. What do students mean when they say that, and what was meant in the climate survey? Our students are our whole reason for being, and our customers, and not only customers but also our reason for existing. And so it's natural for us to come to this kind of work, to come to higher ed with a love for the students and a love for those who we're trying to serve. So I'm not sure where our disconnect is, but definitely something that we need to try to connect, to correct, and work towards better understanding.
Right. I want to circle back to the budget crisis that you were talking about in the opening statement. As we know, PSU needs to cut a $35 million deficit by the end of 2027. Has concrete progress been made to close this deficit?
So actually, it's by fiscal year 28, which begins fall 27 and goes through 28. With that budget needs to be, without a deficit. So just to be really clear, and so yes, we've been making progress. I'd say for a couple of years, we've been addressing it for the past 2 years in terms of. Lowering our costs, lowering our workforce to some degree. But now we need to take an even bigger swing at controlling costs. And it takes time. 80% of our expenses are in personnel, right? So if we are going to cut that much of the budget, it's largely going to come from personnel cuts. And that takes time to, one, make the right decisions about what we need to stop doing and what we need to continue doing, and who needs to do that. And two, we have collective bargaining agreements with most of our employees. There's one group that, they're of unrepresented employees, such as myself and all of the administrators. But basically every other group is represented. And so we need to work with the unions and with the collective bargaining agreements in order to make any changes in personnel there. And that takes time. So yes, we've been working through it for the last couple of years, but there is still a big deficit. But had we not done what we've done for the last 2 years, the deficit would be enormous.
Right. Are there any programs that are going to need to be cut in order to close this deficit?
So I'm not really ready to talk about that. I want to announce that as as sort of a group, all together with a clear vision of where we're going. But we have been engaged in a process called Pivot, which is Plan for Institutional Vitality and Organizational Transformation. Pivot. But this pivot plan is looking at, and I'm assuming you're mainly talking about academic programs, because I'm talking to students after all.
Right. And any other programs can also be considered that as well.
Okay. So anyway, those so the pivot program, or the pivot analysis, has been going on since September. I mean, basically the deans and the provost worked over the summer to design the initiative, and then started it when the faculty returned to the campus in the fall. And so there's been a lot of work, months of work, to look at student success in programs, to look at the financial margin of overhead that each program provides, to look at the market demand for students with degrees in those programs, to look at how well organized and what kind of administrative overhead the particular program has, and then also to look at how does that fit into our mission as a university, as Portland State University in particular. So we're looking at all those domains of evidence, and we've gathered all of that together. And each program, and there's, I want to say, nearly 300, I'm not going to say the exact number because I'll probably get it slightly wrong, but nearly 300 programs that have been analyzed through all of those lenses, and which you can only imagine is quite an effort on the part of the faculty and the administration. But with that, we've classified each program into one of 4 classifications: either grow, sustain, revitalize, or sunset. Okay? And those programs on the sunset list will be the ones that will be eliminated or put on moratorium through a faculty senate process. Okay, so we will be recommending those. Many of those, and so some of them are certificate programs, some of them are bachelor's degree programs, some of them are master's, and some are doctoral programs. So it's kind of all across the map. Many of those are already on moratorium and will just now finally be taken off the books effectively. Many of them have very few students in them. So we're not, chopping off a lot of very active programs. This is important, though, in order to simplify our offerings, to have less administrative overhead that we have. Every program you have has to have some administration, even if it doesn't have any students in it. So we're trying to simplify, narrow down on what we want to do really well and do best. So anyway, stay tuned, and there will be, news coming out fairly soon about this.
Okay. Kind of in tandem with some of the budget crisis, I also want to touch a little bit on some of the enrollment decline. As we know, for the past 15 years, PSU has been experiencing an enrollment decline. What steps is your administration taking to address the specific issue of declining enrollment?
Yeah, so lots of steps. We had an entire enrollment plan exercise where people suggested lots of different activities that the enrollment management folks could engage in order, well, not just them, but the campus could engage in to improve enrollment. And that's those are things like start this or that program that we know has this group that we could reach out to. Some of it has to do with better outreach to high schools. I mean, that's really a crucial thing. Or particular groups. You may know that, for example, we now have a tribal liaison, an executive director of tribal affairs, and she and I have been visiting different tribes. So, for example, that's one thing that we do want to kind of double down on is bringing in Native students. We have the largest group of Native students of any Oregon institution, so I think that's a place. But another huge opportunity is improving retention and graduation. Our graduation rate is not where we would like it to be. It's first-year students are graduating have a 6-year graduation rate of only 53%, and that's a huge opportunity, and it's also the right thing to do. If we have students who invest their time but don't ultimately get to the finish line and get that credential, then that's really tragic, right? It's costly, and it may leave them with loan debt, and not the degree that will help them to get to that higher level of income and well-being. So that, we think, is a really important thing, and we're engaged with the National Institute for Student Success, and they've given us an entire playbook specific to us to work on. So one aspect of this also will be the general education reform, which will be in line with the recommendations. The other big thing, besides the student success work and retention and graduation, is working to increase and improve our transfer pipelines from our community colleges. We're already a big transfer population school, and we can do better even than that. And the opportunity there is immense, because many students go to community college hoping to get ultimately to a 4-year degree, but very few do. So nationally, the statistics are something like 80% of the students who go to community college want to get a 4-year degree, and 16% do. So between 16 and 80, got a lot of opportunity. So we have an MOU with the Portland Community College, our biggest feeder, that we're working to improve that pipeline. We want to get it back at least to pre-pandemic levels in the next couple of years. But also Mount Hood Community College, Clackamas Community College, Chemeketa, those are also really important feeders for us too.
Okay. So in kind of looking at some of the other universities who have also been experiencing enrollment declines, some budget deficits, namely Willamette and Pacific, in December of last year, it announced that they merged to actually create the University of the Northwest. There's some feelings of fear that maybe that could be coming to Portland State. Have there been any talks about potentially merging Portland State with any other local institution?
Well, no, not really merging, but I think there is really an opportunity with the community colleges to be in such close collaboration that we, for example, have some of the advantages of merging, like direct admission or, cross enrollment, So we're really investigating those kind of things. I'll also say that in this legislative session, a bill passed that is instructing the Higher Education Coordinating Commission to look very carefully at this kind of question, and especially in light of what has happened at Southern Oregon University, to look at, are there ways for better collaboration between 4-year universities or four-year universities and community colleges to share services, to do things like that, but potentially also merge, or what do they call it, institutional integration, because they know people are a little afraid of that word merge.
Right, yeah.
I think it was very bold of Willamette and Pacific to go right out there and say merge. I was in a meeting yesterday in the ballroom upstairs from here with all of the regional presidents, including the presidents of Pacific and Willamette, and specifically Jen Coyle, who is the president of Pacific, spoke to that point and said, 2 years ago even, nobody really wanted to talk about mergers, but now in higher education that's a common topic, and we're really looking at where greater institutional integration could be helpful.
Right. So it's not seen as this kind of negative last resort thing. It's being more kind of framed as something more positive for both universities involved.
Absolutely. Yeah. They talk about how they're going to be the largest private university in Oregon, and they think that's a pretty cool thing. Or maybe even in the Pacific Northwest.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to circle back a bit. You were talking about visiting different tribes with, and saying that we have a large number of Native American students here, and that's very important to you. I do want to touch on some of our reporting that we've done for the Native American Student and Community Center. Throughout our reporting with that, we've heard from many community members associated with the NASC, as it's known, that they feel neglected by the university. More so, or looking more specifically at the topic of there was about $38,000 of uncollected revenue that was not found by the university for the NASC. Has the university helped recover this $38,000 for the NASC?
I really can't speak to that because I'm not really, I don't feel fully apprised of what the issue is. So, not sure. I think fundamentally, though, what's really at issue is how well we are staffing the NASC, and we're addressing that. We have a new interim assistant director, and there is a search that's been launched to replace that person. And I think that's really the issue. The fundamental issue is, are we going to properly staff the NASC? And yes, we're doing it, and we've heard people's complaints as far as that goes. I think that's what's really important, is to make sure that this is a space that our Native students especially, but all students can use and can study there and can have community there. And that's what we're really aiming for. So we're doing a lot of really great things in the NASC. There's been a really cool language series, native language speaker series, and a lot of students have been able to come to that. And I've heard from them that they really feel that they feel seen and heard by that kind of programming. So I'm really happy with the work that Modesta Minthorn, our executive director of tribal affairs, has done to make that happen. Another thing that's really important for the Native community, and that is very symbolic but and meaningful, is that we're renaming the street that the NASC sits on to the Rose Hill Street, and taking away the name Jackson from that street. That's a really important thing that we've been working closely with the community, the Native community, to make sure it happens.
Okay. Can you expand a little bit more about what your administration is doing to improve communication with the NASC and then the Native community on campus as a whole, kind of speaking with them directly, having more of those ongoing conversations? Can you talk a little more about that?
I'm sorry.
About what you're doing to kind of improve communication with members of the NASC, people that work there, Native American students in general. How is that communication being better facilitated between those students and your administration?
Yeah. So, we are in a transitionary time, as I mentioned before. Last summer, and I think that may be part of the miscommunications that have happened, but last summer we announced that global diversity and inclusion, which the NASC was reporting to, would be folded into the Office of Academic Affairs as a whole. And so there were some changes that went on then. And so I think maybe there was some miscommunication along there. So what we've tried to do is make very clear the lines of reporting that we now have, and that's been helpful. That's why I think that we are going to have a successful search for an assistant director upcoming. So that's formally how we're doing it, but informally, as I said, the speaker series has drawn in students. I try to attend as many of those and other events that happen in the NASC as possible to just make sure that I have a presence there.
Mm-hmm. Great. Let's shift gears a little bit to talking about some ways to continue vitalizing and bringing back some revitalization to Portland State. I want to talk about athletics. What is your 5-year vision for Portland State athletics?
5-year vision. Well, first of all, let's get into the NCAA men's basketball tournament this March. Wouldn't that be great? My vision is to have a much more fun fan experience at many venues. First of all, our beautiful Viking Pavilion. I don't think we've really taken full advantage of that. So I really want to promote especially our women's teams. You know, we now are in the global epicenter of women's sports, according to Corinna LeBlanc, at least. But also, I think with the new WNBA team, the Fire, coming, as well as the new ownership of the Thorns that also owns the Fire and all of that, that's going to be something that we can really co-promote. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's a real, emergence there. The football program also, we have a new coach, we have a general manager, and we played homecoming in Portland this year. I don't know if you were able to attend.
I was, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I hope you had a great time.
Mm-hmm.
It would be nice if we had had a score that was a little closer, or maybe even.
Yes.
But at least we scored first. So,
it's true.
Yeah. Mm. And I think that the fan experience there was great. I was so pleased to see how many people came, how happy they looked, and so I think that was a really good start. Our student athletes are really playing their tails off. They're just playing really hard, and I think there's a real new atmosphere in athletics, and I think the students are enjoying that. We just had a record in the fall. We had a record attendance at volleyball, and just a couple weeks ago we had a record attendance at men's basketball, and the student sections are full. So that's great. We're now getting into the media. So athletics can really be something that's a lot of fun and that brings the community together. People doing Go Vikes and that sort of thing. And hearing about it in the media, in the greater Portland media, and the Oregonian and things like that, I think that's great. Brings some attention to us. We used to be really great in sports. We had 2 years in a row, the national champion women's volleyball team in the 84 and 85. And we also had a great football team. We had we've had a number of players who've gone pro over time. And of course, this is a soccer city, so I expect that soccer will get a good following as well. So I want to see sports continue to be a great experience for our student athletes. It has been, for it to be a way of recruiting a number of students. We get about 300 student athletes here every year, and those are students who come here and wouldn't come here if we didn't have athletics. So I'm excited to root for the Vikes.
Right. We know there have been some conversations about increasing funding for athletics. Why is increasing funding for athletics important to you?
So increasing funding for athletics, I think you must be referring to the student fee committee, perhaps. Yeah, because the overall budget probably, well, maybe I shouldn't be talking about it on camera, but probably not going to change much right now. But at the student fee committee, what we noticed is that there has been a very sharp downtrend, and it's because there's been a specific formula that student fee committee has had to adhere to every year, and it has disadvantaged athletics. So while everybody else's has been going up, theirs has gone down. So that was sort of, I think that's kind of unfair to that particular student fee funded area as opposed to the others. But that aside, one thing that I've learned is that that if the athletes are more successful and more popular, in the city or in on the campus, it actually costs less to run athletics. You get more donors, you get more ticket sales, you get more media presence, and we are in the Big Sky Conference, which, by the way, you have to have a football team to be in the Big Sky, and there isn't another conference that we could actually fit into. But in the Big Sky, the media deals are all as a result of football, and they're pretty good, and we are in the biggest media area of all of the Big Sky Conference. So I think we could be performing a lot better in terms of media revenue, in terms of ticket revenue, and I'm hoping that with a little bit of startup funds, if you will, that performance will come about, and then we'll ultimately actually have to spend less institutional funding. So one quick fact about that is that Oregon State, which has at least 4 times larger total athletics budget, spends less institutional funding, gives less than we do.
Okay.
So, and it's because of their success in the media, success with donors, etc., ticket sales.
I did want to kind of bring in the other Oregon universities a little bit. When people think of Oregon collegiate sports, their first thought might likely be University of Oregon, with largely
Big
being
Ten.
a Nike school, absolutely, and then potentially followed by Oregon State. With more of a focus on kind of potentially changing that model for the funding to athletics, are you wanting to make PSU a sports contender among kind of those powerhouse programs?
Well, I don't ever see us being in the FBS, which is the football bowl series, whatever, bowl subdivision. We play in the FCS, which is the lower tier of the NCAA Division I. And so, no, I don't ever see us being there. But the Big Sky is actually a very competitive league, and it does end up, generating a lot of media presence particularly for like Montana and Montana State, which are perennial powers in the football. So I do think that there is a niche that we could be in, but more importantly, what is going to appeal to Portland, and how can Portland embrace Portland State? And I believe it can. And we've been working with Sport Oregon, which is an organization that promotes sports across all of Oregon, but it's in Portland, and they're very excited about the possibilities for Portland State athletics. I think we'll have a unique niche. Again, if we could fill Viking Pavilion with, for especially volleyball and basketball, I think we would be doing very well in terms of, meeting our budget numbers and also providing a great experience for Portlanders.
So, looking a little bit at declining enrollment, do you think that potentially bringing more funding and attention to athletics could be one of the answers for PSU's declining enrollment?
Yeah, it could be. It's a crapshoot, right? I mean, it's a high payoff, low probability event, right? But sure, if we make the NCAA tournament and win a couple of games, there is no question in my mind that we would have a lot more applicants, and our enrollment would have a quick influx. But can that be sustained? I'm not really sure. So I believe that this is that athletics will be good for our students, good for especially our student athletes, good for our campus. It'll be a rallying point. It'll be some fun. But I don't think that long term it's a big play for enrollment. But when we do win, especially on the national stage with the NCAA tournament, or if we were to win a national championship in football, which the Big Sky winner often does win the national championship, as it did this year, we could see an enrollment bump. So the Cinderella teams of the NCAA tournament have experienced that. Like, I don't know if you remember a few years ago, Florida Gulf Coast University. I mean, whoever heard of that before? Well, it became incredibly popular after they went to the Final Four.
Okay. I want to touch on some of the issues with PSU AAUP and some of the PSUFA with faculty reinstatement. In November 2025, an independent arbitrator found that PSU administration violated its collective bargaining agreements, talking about the collective bargaining that you spoke of a little bit ago. I wanted to see what the administration's viewpoint of that decision was. The arbitrator said that the university made its layoff decisions before it had sufficient evidence to support them. What is your guys' viewpoint on this decision?
Yeah, well, we disagree. We spent an entire year working on making those decisions. We had a lot of evidence. We put that forward. But it is, a collective bargaining agreement where there are many aspects of it that are up to interpretation. And that interpretation was different from ours. So, it, frankly, very much surprised me. I had no thought that that was coming, because we thought we worked in good faith and also with, with full knowledge of what the article said, but apparently the arbitrator disagreed.
Speaking about that faculty reinstatement, they ruled that the faculty didn't need to be reinstated. On January 13th of this year, you announced through a blog post that the 10 formerly laid off NTTF staff were going to be reinstated with back pay and back benefits. What's the status update on this, both reinstating them and then giving them their back pay and back benefits?
It's been done, and we have welcomed faculty back fully.
Okay. And then, so are those faculty members going to start teaching in the spring? Do we know the timeline on that?
I can't speak to their exact, different appointments, but I believe that's the case.
Okay. Shifting to PSUFA, the Employee Relations Board found that Portland State engaged in unfair labor practices. They ruled that all withheld funds from the Adjunct Financial Assistance Fund, Professional Development Fund, and the Faculty Education Fund must be dispersed. Has this disbursement occurred?
As far as I know.
Okay. When we covered this, there was some information saying potentially an appeal process to this decision was being explored. Is that appeal process still on the table?
No, I mean, we've done what the arbitrators have demanded.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit more, going back to, I want to talk about new board leadership. I want to talk about the Board of Trustees. Recently, Board Chair Antoinette did step down from her position. What direction will the board be taking under new leadership away from what Antoinette was doing?
Yeah, so Antoinette Chandler got a great new job in Los Angeles, running or being the CFO for LAX, and we're very proud to have been part of her career path here in Portland. and so she did feel like she needed to step down as chair, and eventually at the end of the year also from the board itself. So we're sad to see her go, but congratulate her on a great new position. So our new board chair is Wally Van Valkenburg, and Wally was the chair. Van Valkenburg was the vice chair with Antoinette Chambler as chair, and so it's a very smooth transition. I think they were on the same page about virtually every policy issue, and so I don't see really real changes coming there. Every board chair does have their own ideas about how to make sure that the board culture works together well. So, for example, we're starting some small group meetings just to kind of make sure that we know each other well and get along well. Those are things that Wally has been suggesting and moving on. But other than that, I don't see really any big policy big policy changes or changes to the practices or the committees.
So you don't see any changes to kind of board priorities with this new chair and vice chair?
No.
Okay.
Oh, I should have mentioned the vice chair as well. We didn't mention that. Mark Rosenbaum, who was the chair of the Finance Audit and Administration Committee, has now moved into the vice chair. So again, very smooth transition. Somebody already in leadership, already on the executive and governance committee, and then the new person in the Finance Audit and Administration Committee chair position is Marisa Madrigal.
We have so much to get to, so much we can talk about. Goodness. I would like to ask you just one final question to kind of think about. What do you see, looking at the campus as a whole, what do you see as the most pressing issue that the campus is facing?
Well, I think the most pressing issue is the financial stability of the campus going forward. And all of the issues that surround that, right? Because we are going to have to make some difficult decisions, and that's going to be difficult for the community to embrace and to survive through. And so once we get through those issues, I think we'll be in a position to really rebuild, look to the future, and make sure that all of our remaining students and employees feel really good about the campus going forward.
And do you have any final messages to Portland State students specifically?
Good luck on finals in a couple of weeks, and go Vikes.
That's it.
All right.
That was
Great.
wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you so